Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I know we will have formal introductions in a little bit, but welcome to our new members. I'm very excited. So Heather, if you can take roll, we'll start with that.
Absolutely. Sorbula?
Aye.
Lyra? Roberts?
Aye.
Payne?
Aye. Did you say Payne?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Wenzelberger?
Oh.
Yang?
Aye.
Johnson?
Here.
Lee?
Present. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Okay. I will start with the land acknowledgement. We are gathered here on the lands that were originally home to the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. We honor the Menominee and Ho-Chunk communities and are grateful for their stewardship of the land and waters. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds as sacred and remember the complex history of settler colonialism on these lands and the effects that persist today. We commit to a restorative and healing relationship of the original inhabitants and our community. Okay. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting on December 20th, 2021. Any discussion around the minutes? Questions?
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, me.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. Heather?
Yes. Sorbula? Roberts?
Aye.
Payne?
Aye.
Wenzelberger?
Aye.
Yang?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is citizen statements to the DEI committee. Were there any that were submitted, Michelle or Heather?
Nope, I have no citizen statements registered or public comments.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to introductions. So welcome to our new DEI committee members. I see Agnes Payne and Sophia Wenzelberger. Okay, I said both of your names correctly, I believe. Welcome to our committee. We are so thankful for your service and your time. We're thankful that you want to serve in this capacity, and we are excited to hear your voice, and we value your opinions and thoughts, perspectives, and lived experiences. Ms. Payne, would you like to start first? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. Anything you want to share with the community. I don't want to set the
Okay.
your talk. Go ahead.
I am originally from Florida and Chicago, and I've been here in Oshkosh now for 7 years. During my time in Chicago, I encountered and interacted with many people of different cultures, which was very good throughout the world. And the interaction was wonderful, and I learned a lot from them. In fact, with the interaction, it really helped me to create events and educational programs focusing on multiculturalism and diversity. Learned a lot. Just recently, I wrote an article because I'm a core member of the Civility Project, and I wrote an article about diversity and multiculturalism from my own experiences that I have had. Right now, I'm on the Oshkosh Transit Advisory Board. I'm a core member of the Civility Project. I was on the Rental Housing Advisory Board and also the Public Arts and Beautification Committee. So this, I like the idea of this diversity committee that the community is doing because it is needed. And I think, and the community they will learn so much and grow with this multiculturalism and the diversity. It's good for the city. It's really good for the city. And if you want to know anything more about me, just go to my website, ocacwi.com, or LinkedIn to Agnes Louise Bookman-Payne. Then you'll know some more about me. Thank you so much. And thank you for letting me on this committee. I really appreciate it. I hope I can do something to help.
Thank you, Agnes. That was a wonderful introduction. We look forward to hearing more of your ideas, and I think a lot of your hopes and wishes align with a lot of ours. Thank you. Sophia, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, hello, I am Sophia. I am a student at UW Oshkosh right now, studying education, specifically English education with an emphasis in like bilingual. I lived in Florida for a year and I met a lot of diverse communities, and I came back here and started working at the Day by Day warming shelter. So that's really gotten me wanting to make a difference in the city, seeing what I see there as well as what I've been learning in my classes. This is my first time ever serving on a committee or anything, so it's definitely going to be a learning experience, but I look forward to it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sophia. I was a bilingual special education teacher for 11 years, and so we should chat about that sometime. Well, thank you to Agnes and to Sophia. Welcome again. And Alonzo, I did not get to introduce you formally. We had the pleasure of working with you last month, or at the end of 2021. Thank you for joining us tonight. The next segment of our meeting, for the next hour, we have you to talk about our plan development.
Angie,
kind of fuzzy.
I'd like all of us to introduce ourselves to the new members.
Oh, sure. Sure, of course. Yes. I'll just go on my screen, top to bottom. So Anne Marie, would you like to begin?
Anne Marie Johnson. I've lived in Oshkosh for 22 years, except for 7 years, 4 of which I lived in Florida also. 23 years? I don't know, a lot of years. And I've been on the committee since not very long, just this fall. I also work with diversity, equity, and inclusion at my workplace, and so I also wanted to get more involved at the local level.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Mi, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Yes, Mi Yang. I'm currently serving as the board president for the Hmong Service Center here in Oshkosh. I have lived here for 35 years. Pretty much most of my life was here. I'm so happy to be a part of this committee. This is my 2nd year, so I want to welcome the new members to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mi. Uche, would you like to introduce yourself next, please?
That's my video. Okay. Yes. Sorry, I'm in the vehicle anyway. I moved to this town in Oshkosh since 2008. Currently, I've been with the DEI committee since the beginning. Other than that, I run a nonprofit called Save for Zambia. We do most of our work on social justice issues and also education. What motivated me to be part of this group initially is more about sharing my own experiences throughout my being in the United States as a Black man, and that pushes me to do more. And I hope we're gonna learn more from the new members that have joined us. So briefly, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Moshe. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. My name is Beth Roberts, and I've lived in Oshkosh for around 30 years. I have been on this committee since it originated. One of my many reasons for being on the committee is that I'm also on the Winnebago County Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, so I sort of a little bit of a liaison between the two committees. Also participated in the City of Oshkosh School District's efforts in this regard. I serve as the Winnebago County Aging and Disability Resource Director, so people with disabilities are one of my other areas of interest in terms of advocating for more inclusion.
Thank you. Michelle or John or Heather, would any of you like to introduce yourselves? Michelle, please introduce, you're part of our committee, please, if you will.
I did introduce myself a little bit before the rest of you got on, but as I mentioned, I'm the staff liaison, so I'm the person from the city that generally communicates with you guys directly. If you have questions or whatever, I'm definitely a good person to come to. Otherwise, you'll also go to your chairperson, Ashley, or Vice Chair Angie with questions. Ashley's not here today, so you'll, I'm sure, get to meet him next time. But also John Fitzpatrick is also with the city, and I'll let John introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Michelle. Sorry, my video is kind of wonky tonight, so I'm just able to speak to you, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. I just want to welcome Agnes and Sophia. Agnes, it's good to see you again, although you can't see me.
No.
I think we're really going to benefit from you and Sophia being part of the group. I've been with the city of Oshkosh since 1999. I'm the assistant city manager and also serve in a variety of different capacities. I'm the ADA coordinator for Title I and II. I'm the AEO coordinator. I'm also a liaison to a variety of different groups. So I'm proud to be part of this group, and however I can assist, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, John. Heather, would you like a chance to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Heather. I am the HR assistant here for the city. I will be the one that I take the notes. I do roll call, and you get emails from me periodically when to send out the agenda and the minutes. It's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you, Heather, for doing all of that for us. My name is Angie. I am the vice chair of the DEI committee. It's been a long time since I've facilitated. I'm very rusty, as you can tell. But I've been involved with with this committee since its beginning. And I would say some of my roots in working, doing this work began when I was a teacher. And that's when I would say my heartstrings were pulled for social justice and equity. And so I would say that's where those roots kind of began. But just through my young adult life and as a mother and a community member, these issues have always been a forefront of my passions, and the intersections of those have been a passion of mine. And so I'm honored and humbled to be on this committee. I'm grateful. So thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for that reminder that we should all introduce ourselves. Okay, and now we can move on to our plan development with Alonzo. Alonzo, would you like to introduce yourself first, and then we can get started whenever you are ready.
Sure. So good evening, family. Alonzo Kelly here. And an honor to be back with all of you. At first, I felt this need to make a Florida connection since the first three people said Florida. So I have a contract with a client in Palm Beach, and I get to go to Florida every month for 3 days. Sweet.
Very
Nice.
That's
sweet.
about that's about all I got. So if anybody needs me to bring something home from family, I got you. Just let me know.
Thank
Um,
you.
I born and raised here.
Sunshine.
I'll do what I can. Although I missed my last flight in Florida because of tornadoes. So let's just say the climate's all screwed up. Um, let's see. Born and raised Detroit, lived in Wisconsin since I was 13, however, and my first job out of college was in Oshkosh. So that is my connection to Oshkosh. So as it relates to the strategic plan, here's where I'd like to start. There is a model that maybe some of you are familiar with. It's an acronym, RACI, RACI. Uh, the R stands for recommend, the A stands for approve, the C stands for consult, and the I stands for inform. RACI. You may also have seen it, depending on your work, in a role clarity model. When I first received the information about the diversity committee and I read it and its relationship to the city, this is what I was asking myself. Which letter is the diversity committee for the city? Does the diversity committee make recommendations? Does the diversity committee approve DEI work? Is the committee the body that the city consults with before it makes a decision, if you will? Or is the committee uh, share the responsibility of informing the community what we're doing? So that's where my head was. After two meetings with the committee, I have arrived at this intersection where I feel like us not agreeing what our letter is one of our biggest pain points. Some of us believe that we are the ones to be consulted with before a city takes action. Others of us believe that the committee makes recommendations, but we're not the ones who approve it. Maybe some of us believe the city shouldn't be doing DEI work without running it past us first, depending on how you read our charter, right? So that's our pain point. So in my conversation with a few of you, in my experience with DEI committees, where I lose interest or frustration or whatever you want to call it, is when I feel like we get together every month, but I can't see anything that we're doing. So sometimes you just need a couple wins, if you will. Give me something I can touch, give me a project I can work on, let me see our input and our ideas actually coming to fruition. And so what I did is I actually pulled up the city website and I asked myself a question. If I were moving to Oshkosh, how long would it take for me to feel like I belong here? Like how long would that take if I didn't know anything about it? Well, I'd go to the website. I can't find you. I can't find the committee on the website, and it's my understanding that you're there. But anybody who knows websites, if I gotta click more than like two or three times, I'm out. Right? I'm not gonna data mine a website for something I didn't even know existed. So it was at that point I was talking to Ashley and I said, maybe as a committee, we can agree, let's take two or three things that we know we can influence, right? That we can put our hands on and we can make recommendations and we can see action happening. And then we move on to some other more complex topics. So here was the recommendation. So I wanted to explain racy because now you'll notice that's how I speak. Like, I'm not an A in this committee. I can't approve anything. I just make a lot of recommendations. So here's what I would recommend. I would recommend as a committee, we pick something we know that we can touch, that we can make real change in, not only in terms of our ideas, but we can see action. So, for example, low hanging fruit, the parks. Now, it's too cold to be at the parks. I understand that. However, I think in partnership with whoever is responsible for the parks at the city, we could look at things like access. We could look at things like art and inclusivity. Those are things that we could take our own evaluation of, make recommendations, and see what happens. Now, here's where I will pause because I did ask a very explicit question and I got two different answers. So I said, let's say I go to the park at the lakefront and I see that there are no ramps for our brothers and sisters with disabilities. Who builds the ramp? Do we recommend the city put a ramp there, or is the diversity committee showing up with hammer, nails, 2x4s, and paint? I'm sort of asking without asking. So as a committee, what do you understand if we notice a park has no ramps? What do you understand your role to be with that ramp?
That we make a recommendation. Either, and I don't know whether it's to the city or to another, to a specific body within the city, but I understand that we make recommendations, not that we do something at that level. Although if it were to highlight something, we might do an activity about something like that, but we wouldn't actually build.
Anyone else?
I think Alonzo, also within our duties is to look at, let's, like in this example, the parks, their measures, their metrics, and advise, and make sure that in their um, charter, whatever they use for their metrics, that it's under a framework of equity and inclusion. So I see it on another level as well.
Yep.
Right. We might not just say, oh, there's a ramp missing here, but we might ask the parks, what are you doing to make sure that all of the parks are accessible? Or to what extent are all of the parks accessible? Do you
Right.
have data on it? And if not, how will you collect it?
So I share that understanding that as a committee, we would partner with whoever is responsible for the parks, whatever that means. We would take a look at the plan for the park. We'd actually go to the parks. We'd make recommendations, and then we could see what happens next with our recommendation. The way that your charter reads, you show up with hammer, nails, and 2x4. That's the way some people are literally taking it. And so we have we have to agree that our role is as consult recommender, not approver. Like we keep getting stuck on this approve thing. Here's another example. Uh, to me, low hanging fruit, but it's one I'd ask you to consider, like the library. So, if I were new to the city, and I were going to look for community events, for example, I would probably go to the library before I went to the city. Or since there's such a rich collection of diversity, not just race and ethnicity, but culture as well, I would see the library as the place that helps me understand the community I live in. So maybe we, would examine that and see what the library is offered and what are those educational opportunities and awareness opportunities. But we can't tell the library what to do. But we can audit and see what's going on at the library and see what we would recommend at the library. I do understand that there's also a lot of conversation about the city has an obligation, whether the DEI committee exists or not, for professional development of city employees, for its staff, some measure of cultural competency, right? Creating a space where everyone feels they belong. That's their responsibility. So then what is the committee's role in partnering with them on that? So that's cloudy for some, right? So in my conversation, I said, well, there are a couple low-hanging fruit things there too, so we could feel like we were partnering with the city on what happens, I'm going to say inside the fence. There's outside the fence and inside the fence. And the recommendation was we could look at performance evaluations or job descriptions in terms of language that measures cultural competency or at a minimum holds leaders accountable for some measure of being culturally competent. It does not mean we get to look at, the way that I understand it is we can't look at, like I can't look at Michelle's performance evaluation. Like I don't get to see that. But I can see how are we evaluating our leaders on being culturally competent. And we can make recommendations on job descriptions, performance evals, those kinds of things. So I'm going to pause for a second so I don't feel like I'm lecturing. Curious how this is landing with you or anything I shared that I can further explain.
I've been holding back a smirk since you started talking because I don't want to use the word complaint. One of my biggest, I guess, concerns with this committee is I don't feel like we've ever defined which of those roles we have. However, from the onset, I feel like the word recommend or recommendation has come up more times than I can imagine. So when we're landing sort of on a recommendation with your two examples, it makes perfect sense considering that we've talked about recommending and recommendations from the get-go. I also just wanted to interject that and everything again everything you said makes 1,000% sense. But I do want to add that I'm very surprised that we have had such little input from the community. I don't want to go back in time to that, those initial meetings, but we've talked from the get-go about somehow engaging the community. This is a small group of people trying to represent the entire city as far as, are we looking at parks? Are we looking at the library? Are we looking at city employee training, all of the above? But why aren't we getting more recommendations or there we go. Why aren't we getting more input from our community? Why aren't we soliciting input? I feel like we're very much isolated in what we do here. I can't believe there's never a comment from the public, that there aren't more people just listening to these or participating, that we aren't coming to these meetings with, hey, I heard from 6 different people last week that this is an area they'd like to see us look into. Nothing. It's just this group, and that really astounds me.
I was kind of feeling the same way. I think a big part of it is that people don't know about the committee. Like you said, you can go on the website and you're not going to find it. I've lived in Oshkosh my whole life, and I did not know about the committee until I was trying to find a way to get more involved, and one of my friends happens to stumble upon it for me. I do, and then that was another thing is people hear the committee name, but they really don't know what do we do, because we're talking about the parks and stuff. I think a lot of people would never even consider that we would work on the parks, that we would work on making parks more inclusive, or the library. So I think that's a big thing. It's like what we really want our goals to be, and just have the community know more about us would, I think, get us more input.
Yeah, I mean, I use the excuse as to why I'm sometimes late, but I can't go to the city website to find my way into the meeting. And we have two city newspapers. How can we be so how can we be such a secret to everybody when we have two city newspapers and city council meetings that are attended by other people? We have city committee on aging and all different types of things happening, and somehow we just stay way under the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Say it's
Right.
because we don't know what we're doing. So until we have more of a sense of what we're doing and a better, oh, this is a project we're working on, a thing we are looking at, or a recommendation that we are making, then we might be able to generate interest or have someone come and give a presentation about X or project that we are working on. We might generate interest. Or does anybody really go to other boards and commission meetings? I've been an adult for 30 years. I've never gone to a board or commission meeting until I became a member of this, because it never occurred to me.
Only if it affects you personally.
Yeah. So I
Right.
wouldn't feel too bad about it. It never occurred to me to go to this until I was like, I'd like to become more involved. I've been interested in this. Not that this committee existed until recently, but it never occurred to me to come to the meetings. And I knew that this committee existed for a year before I tried to join it. It just never occurred to me to come. And I was interested.
So what we're doing now with my entrepreneurial hat on, I am separating in the business from on the business, right? So in terms of things that we could do to feel like we're taking action, um, however you did it, we could have a small group of people in terms of on the business. It's our presence on the website. It's access to the meetings. It's how do we make sure we're communicating to the public that they're all invited, right? What is our on the business mechanism for that? You could have a couple people focused on that. Um, in terms of in the business. Now, I threw parks and library out there, but if you go on the city website and look at services, there's a bunch. Those just seem like the two easiest ones to me. I don't know if you want to take on sanitation out the gate. I'm not even sure what DEI would do with that yet. um, I say with a smile, I'm not even sure I'd come out the gate with law enforcement, because then we'll be doing things like, what are the demographics of how many people you pulled over and how many people got a ticket and what are the rate, like I'm with you, just not first. Because it's a lot, right? Um, the I just feel like as a committee, that's like where we should focus our energy first. Let's take one or two things we know we can touch. Let's have another group of people looking at these things that we were talking about. Why are there no community voices? Maybe you can have a group of people who make a recommendation on how we survey the community, whatever that means. What would be the best way to do that? Now, I would recommend you not leave that open-ended, because then you'll become the box of everything I don't like about living here. But if you did it in with respect to these are our initial focus areas. What are your thoughts about these areas as it relates to DEI or the concept of belonging, and narrow people's focus? You could do that. And
Um,
then, I'm sorry, and then one more quick, you could have a small group of people looking at those performance eval and job descriptions for language and core competencies. I'm sorry, Agnes, I cut you off.
no, when I'm looking at it, and maybe I'm looking at it in an old-fashioned way, but you have to do sort of an outreach. I know I've been here like for 7 years, and many things that I have noticed is when you really go out and to the community, there's many organizations here with different multicultural organizations here. You should do a really good outreach to them. I don't know, you have to go out into the community, do some legwork out there, and then let them know that this organization is here. What's her name? Beth? Is it Beth? Beth Roberts? Is it Beth? Okay. It, Beth's point is correct. You know, it's like you're sitting here, you have a committee, you feel like no one else is having any input in. Am I saying this correctly? Roberts, Beth,
Yeah,
is this
yeah.
what you're
I mean,
saying?
have we reached out to the mosque, to say, hey, do you have
There you
anything?
go.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a cart and horse issue. Is we could do some things and then reach out, or we could reach out to say, hey, do you have any suggestions for us? But
There you go.
yeah, and back to what you
Mm-hmm.
said about low hanging fruit. That's what I've sort of been a broken record about. Is can we just do something?
There you
And
go.
I was a
Mm-hmm.
pain in the rear about getting the
Mm-hmm.
city website to be Google Translate. What if you came here from somewhere else and you didn't speak English and you were looking for
There you go.
information about parks or employment
Mm-hmm.
or so we did that. I was like, okay, we got something done,
Mm-hmm.
but let's grab some of that low hanging fruit.
And then once you do it, you have to stay on it. Find out who's the leadership in this area here in Oshkosh. Who are the leaders within these different cultural uh, groups here? You'd be surprised at the people that are here, and we just need to reach out to them and literature about this, about the committee, what you're planning to do. And then I think that then you will get probably more input. Individual website for us. I don't know if that's possible that we have our own website. I don't know any of that, but my thing is from my own experiences, you have to do the legwork too. You can have these committees and board meetings, but you've got to get out there and go. You mentioned something, Alonzo, about maybe there can be 2 or 3 people on this committee board or whatever who's really going to do the legwork. You have to do legwork. Let people know. In this city, people sit back. They really sit back. So how do you do, as Beth said, how do you get them out there, Alonzo? How do you get people to really get involved and give their input on what they feel?
Well, I am not lazy, and I am a low effort, high impact individual. So,
Okay.
so here's what I mean by that. Um,
Okay.
there are a lot of people who have the same vested interest we do that could
Mm-hmm.
help us do the work. So I say that as a proud member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We have our own internal mission of feedback in the community, right? But the thought of asking one
Is
another
that
to
from
partner,
UW? Is
it's
that you,
well,
you,
it's
you,
it's all of
UW?
Northeast Wisconsin.
Oh,
But yes,
oh,
right?
okay, go ahead.
Or or
Mhm.
low effort, high impact. Are you aware that the county has its own diversity, equity, and inclusion committee and puts on events? So I was invited to a county event for a speaker series with
Mhm.
Winnebago County's only African American judge.
Yes,
And
I saw that.
and I thought to myself, one,
Mhm.
unemotionally,
Mhm.
this is part of the problem. It's like county city does their own stuff for diversity. Two, um, I don't know why the judge wouldn't talk for the city DEI speaker series too,
Because we
right?
don't have one. I'm the one that puts together the speaker series for the county, and yes, I have shared it with this committee.
Well, see
Okay.
there you go. So
And excuse me, but what happened when you shared it with the committee?
I just share like what the who's next on the like next month is Dr. Grady from UW Oshkosh. She's going to be speaking. And then we have a lady the following month whose grandparents were in a camp. She's a Japanese American. So we have different people from, actually me spoke at one of them. One of our own committee members spoke at one of them. So, you know, I'm supposed to be part of that liaison between the two, and I won't go there, but yes, but I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people don't know that Oshkosh was about I believe, sixth city in the state to be designated by AARP as age-friendly and livable. And there was a lot of surveys sent out, information sought about what we could do to be more livable. And so we don't have to necessarily send out a survey. We already have input from the city on what people feel would be make us more a better a more livable city. There's also, when we talk about surveys, a lot of surveys that have been sent out to similar communities. So we don't have to we don't need a committee to necessarily make up a survey. We can look at some of the surveys that have already been sent out, look at what portions of that pertain to us, and we're done.
So now I'm going to put my consulting hat on because I feel it happening, right? A meeting, we're going to generate a bunch of ideas, and then the meeting is going to be over. So this is where, like, we have to decide, what are we going to do, right? So I'm recommending a couple things we can do, but however we are organized within the committee, then a decision needs to be made, right? So for example, in no particular order, somebody could go to the county's DEI committee and we could rhyme their model. They have a model. We could rhyme it. And or we could take 2 or 3 services the city offers and we could adopt them as our first projects that we are going to examine, audit, partner with the person in the city, make some recommendations, and see what happens. We could also have a small collection of people on this committee work on the business or on the committee in terms of website presence, access to meetings. How are we inviting people to the meetings? There's enough here for all of us to, I hate the term get our hands dirty, but to get involved in the work, if that makes sense. But what we can't do is have all these amazing ideas and then we're not sure what we're doing by the time we see each other, if that makes sense.
It does.
So what I do not know, now I'm going to shut up and learn. I'm going to listen. How do we make decisions on what to take action on? How do we do that? How do you do that?
Thank you for everyone for your input. Yeah, I think that Alonzo, I'm so inspired by how you lay things out so clearly, and something that I've been wanting and thinking of for our committee is to create, and I'm going to use the word subcommittees. I know there's some or that word in of itself conveys like certain legal parameters, but subcommittees, and around bigger ideas or bigger projects, or goals that we have, I should say. For example, one of our one goal I would like to, or one committee I'd like to create is one for communication. So Alonzo, as you've mentioned and others have mentioned in here, our communication with the city and ways, both for output and input. I know I had asked about creating a Facebook group, given that most people consume their current information, current news through social media, and I know that there are a couple hiccups there. So I'm happy to work with you, Michelle, again on that and reopen that conversation, whether it's Facebook or some other social media platform. And then we currently have the Herald, that relationship, and our commitment to contributing to the Herald. It would be nice if we had a certain goal for this year, like say we're going to contribute 4 times in 2022 and try to increase that, and maybe even, you know, diversify what that might look like as far as just informational or storytelling or whatnot. So yeah, I think it starts with creating these subcommittees where people can volunteer according to their interests, talents, skills, and passions. We have a master document where people did, at the very beginning, we did kind of lay out like, okay, this is why I joined the committee. This is what I'm excited about. This is what I'd like to pursue, or some goals and visions I have for this committee. We have that all kind of curated, and you know, we can definitely look back at that. And then also we started another document of like projects that we have hoped, you know, that we had hoped to begin as a committee, just kind of like either personal or, you know, community oriented, but just again, like sourcing back to like, what do I feel passionate about? What am I excited about? So we can definitely look back at those documents as well, and in some of that decision making.
I have a question I ask in the beginning of training sometimes on this topic. Um, I'll ask the audience things like, "Hey, if I first moved here, what are the organizations or associations that I could join as a professional Black person?" and see what people told me. Or what are the organizations that serve our Hmong brothers and sisters? Or what are the LGBTQ plus organizations and associations I should know about? And I don't let people Google on purpose. And what I use it for is to see the audience's general understanding of who's in the community, right? So where I would offer it to you is, because I was looking for one and I couldn't find it, like a diverse association directory, right? Um, what are all of those groups and organizations and associations that serve the rich diversity in our community, not just race and ethnicity? That's like another hand thing. Like I can touch that thing that if I were first here that I could go to and I could refer myself to. So it's not that all the things I heard us saying like we shouldn't do. It's in what order should we do it? That's all. It's like laundry, right? In what order do you do your laundry? In what order are we building this thing that everybody feels like they belong? That's all. And then, you know, all of you, because you're on this committee, because you're passionate about it, there's got to be something in there like you want to take on.
And maybe the order in which we do things is somewhat dependent on who's willing to do what. You know, you think about
Yeah.
maybe not laundry, but different tasks, whether it's cleaning my house. There's certain things I really prefer not to do. And sometimes I'm in a mood where I just want to get them out of the way because I don't like to do them. And other times I'm like, yeah, get to that next week. So maybe part of what determines what happens first is who's willing to do what. Not necessarily that it's most important or that it's should come before another thing, but if we've got 2 or 3 people who are ending this meeting today saying, you know what, I want to do this now, that's where we start.
That's right. That's right.
And I do agree. You guys have come up with, I would say, 100 great ideas. But we're still in we've got these 100 great ideas stage. And I agree, you guys. I think if someone feels passionate and you want to pick a couple things that somebody's going to spearhead, I think that's great. And of course, you know, I'm willing to work with any of you on any of your passion projects, so to speak. And I love, of course, getting the citizens more involved, because I think, and I didn't form this group, right? But of course, I was very excited when it was formed because we wanted to hear what the community had to say. What does the community need? What are they missing? You know, what can the, you know, what do they need from the city? And I think you guys want that same thing.
If we take on what does the community want, which I think is super duper important. As a person who grew up on public transportation, here's where I would be selfish about the committee and managing expectations. If you, for example, ask the community what do they need, and they say we need better transportation and more bus stops that go farther places, this committee can't control that. I mean, you can recommend more bus stops, but you are not the A. Does that make sense? That's why I said like be intentional in our questions the first time around. It doesn't mean don't ask, but if you ask me and I tell you that's what I need and you do everything but that, I'm not answering it again. If that makes sense. So I'm going to go back to my original question. How does this committee make decisions on what we do next?
We haven't done anything yet.
Thank
We
you.
haven't had to make.
Generally, you would make a motion and you guys would vote on an action. And I think that's where they wanted to, again, like you said, Alonzo, come up with 2 or 3 things that they could move forward on. I think everyone is so considerate of everybody else's passion that sometimes I think nobody wants to assert and say, I think we should do this and we should start doing it now.
Okay, so I got a question. Like if I were to make a practice recommendation, since I can't, or motion, I'm not a voting member. So somebody would say, I would like to make a motion that we form a group to examine our branding and web presence and communication. Like, is that what? I guess I'm not sure what the motion would be. I'm sorry, me. I saw your hand. I cut you off.
If I may, I mean, speaking from experience, I feel that so far we haven't really done anything in this committee. And when I join other committees, we do a lot of things. And I'm just going to share a little bit how we do. And I know that DI being part of the city, there may be some restrictions and procedures that we have to stay under the city rules and regulations. But, you know, I think that when we're trying to find out what the community needs, like some of you mentioned earlier, they have to know about us. They have to know about this committee. And if they don't know this committee, they don't know about us, they're not going to be able to share express their opinions on what they think they need or the community needs. So what I do under my organization, the Hmong Service Center, I go out there, I talk to people, I collaborate with events, I network with other organizations. We let them know that we're here. We let them know what we do. And when people have an issue or something, they think of us. They remember us from somewhere, and they will contact us. We hold events and stuff like that. I would like to see DEI, our members, to get out there, whether it's three, 4, 5 of us, or the entire committee, or whatever. I think that we should be out there and talk to people. We should be out there joining people. Like, for example, I don't know if anybody knows that there's an event coming up on I believe Friday the 11th of February. There's a speaker called Miley Chang. She's going to speak about at the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, and I will take my organization there. We're going to have a booth, and we're going to bring whatever we can to show people that this is who we are, this is what we do in the Hmong Service Center. So maybe that is something like DEI committee could do. Go there, have a table, and talk to people. Have a couple there, a couple of representatives there, talk to people, be part of that meeting, and meet the public. This is kind of how you grow and how you let people know that you exist and what do you do. And by word of mouth, eventually it'll take some time, but eventually the name of DEI will get out there in the community. That's one way that I see, that's how I run my organization. And I know that I also join a couple other organizations, and that's kind of what we do. So I think that maybe we need to think a little bit about this, collaborate, network, go out there, talk to people, listen to other organizations, kind of partner with them. This is kind of how you get the work evolved and find out what is needed in the community. So those are my 2 cents.
Yes, but so what you're speaking of is the same thing all in one. Is doing strictly an outreach, and how do we do it? That's all. And you've got to get into the community.
Right.
You know, I mean, you can have all the organizations you want. I mean, we can sit here and talk about this all day, but the next meeting should be like, what's the plan? Do we start the outreach? How do we do it? You know, and I mean, even the farmers market, have we ever done that? It may sound crazy, but you know, do we have a booth out there? Look at the people that come out there. So there's so many things that we can do, and I think that we should buckle down to, as you said, Mi Yang, is strictly an outreach. Get out there and let people know about it, and have some sort of literature or whatever written up, and also a questionnaire or whatever. Just ask people things, and then you'd be surprised at how it's done. So I agree with you, Mi Yang, all the way about that. Yeah, definitely.
I think you're muted if you're
Beth,
talking.
if you're talking, you're muted.
Sorry. I developed the county's brochure, DEI brochure. We were only able to share it at one farmer's market because of when it finally got done, but I can email it to you to take a look at to see if that's along the lines of some of the written material you'd like to produce that people could have with them to, share with others and all kinds of opportunities. And then I also wanted to ask, Angie, what is the holdup with the Facebook? What is why can't we have Facebook up and running between now and our next meeting? What's the barrier?
Michelle, would you like to answer that? Or do you mind answering that, Michelle?
I have to say, I don't think I was part of the conversation about Facebook. One of the issues is that you guys can't have meetings outside of meetings. So we can't have 5 of you interacting as a meeting in social media. But I'm not, I'm not totally familiar with what happened with the Facebook conversation.
So, depending on how we want to set it up, though, like this was very controversial for the ADRC to set up a Facebook page. And the way we did it is, you can like something or comment on something, but you don't get to post anything. So it's set up in a way that we're just providing information. So, we got put in Facebook jail for a while, but aside from that, we put a lot of information out there about events that are happening. So it's not a meeting. It's not a social meeting opportunity. It's informational.
Right. And that's something, I'd be happy to explore that with our either our media or our IT department. And again, as long as you guys aren't having meetings outside of meetings where you're like, let's do this, let's do that. But I certainly would be happy to, I guess, spearhead with any of you what we can do about sharing information within the community, because I think that would be great, right? We want to get the information out there of what's going on, and the more places we can share events and information is great. So, I don't know if you guys want to make a motion of one of your areas being on outreach, because I think that's what I'm hearing about the group that's here right now, is maybe you do want to focus on outreach, including, like you guys, I heard you say the website, possible social media. Obviously, there was a lot more getting out into the community, attending events.
I'd like to make a motion that we that you find out what from your IT or whoever you need to find out what it would take for us to set up a Facebook page.
Okay. I don't think we need a motion for me to check into something. I'd be happy to check into that.
Hey, family, can I slow our thinking down just a little bit? So here's what I would recommend, capital R. I say we spend the next 30 days getting our house in order. And what I mean by that is let's all look at website, branding, flyers, communication, what we called outreach. It doesn't mean we're out there yet, because the truth is, if you gave me a flyer, you should expect me to say, what do you do? And I'm nervous about everybody's answer. It would change depending on who I ask. So let's get our house in order. This includes social media presence, flyers, website, right? And maybe if we're super ambitious, I have a question. If we were going to poll this committee to pick one or two areas that we adopted as the two things we're going to focus on, park, library, I don't know. I keep saying park and library, but it doesn't have to be that. Does the public have to know that? As a committee, if we were voting to pick two things, or agree to look at language and performance evals and job descriptions, like does the public need to know that we're deciding that?
Okay, now, Alonzo, we need to make a motion whether we actually are going to do outreach. And from that, we sit back and we get together and decide how we're going to do this outreach and do it. Because you've been here for a long time. I keep hearing it from whatever. And that's the only way that you can do it. Me Yang, you explained it very, very well. We have to do the outreach. Outreach includes many things. And then you will be surprised at the response of people. So that's my opinion. I mean, we can go on we can get the house in order. We can do all of this and do all that. But I think the most important thing right now is to get that outreach.
I do think that having our core, this is what we're aiming for, helps with outreach, because diversity and equity are such big terms. I mean, there's so many different ways that people can be diverse and what that can mean and how we can help with that having, like, we're going to focus, using parks and the library as the example, on parks and library, then we can talk to the community on what that means. How can we make parks more accessible? How can we make the library more accessible? And how does that have to do with our committee? Because right now it's very broad, and I think a lot of people just, if they know that we exist, they have no idea what we do or what we care about.
Well, when you have that, what is this committee all about? And then that's a good question. So when you're doing an outreach, what are you telling people about this committee? And do you want their input? What impact can they have if they know about this committee? They only know through you reaching out, and your literature has to be a certain way, or your flyers or whatever, where people would be interested in wanting to put the input into this committee. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there from life experiences. This is what I'm going from. The life experience.
And I love it, Agnes, and I'm actually 100% in agreement with you. And here's my question. If you I'm talking to everybody. If you reach out to me and share with me that Oshkosh has a diversity committee, and I said, where can I learn more? How would you answer that?
Well, who do you have as your main contact person with this diversity committee? Is there any person or whatever that they call so they can find out more? What is your literature going to say? You have to look at all of that.
Well, Agnes, that's my point.
Yeah,
We
what
don't
is it
have
going?
that.
Well, you have to get it. I'm sorry.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the order I'm
Now
recommending.
let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this. You've been going on for a long time. It's time for this to stop. Now let's focus on, we can ask questions after questions after questions. Right now we need to focus on what are we really going to focus on. And as we have stated here, from me, Yang and Roberts and all the rest, we have to focus on one thing. So out of that will come the proper literature, whatever that we need to do. And do you have the Facebook? Well, of course, I think you stated that Facebook was no problem. But also when you talk about the Facebook, what are we going to say on the Facebook? So we have to sit back and really get this. Okay. Let's sit back and then let's really get this together on how do we tell people about this committee, the purpose of this committee. Is there a purpose for this committee? So I think that this is what we really do. I mean, Alonzo, you were really good with this questions, and questions, but the questions are over now. Now it's time to take action. How do we do this? It seems like to me, and okay, it seems like to me that we just need to focus on the outreach, as Mi Yang said. And another point, I think Roberts mentioned, she said, like there's no input. How do we get that? We need to sit down and really concentrate. Maybe everyone get together and say, well, this is what I feel like should be a not letter, of some sort of literature or whatever about this committee to get it out. Yes, do we have to go to different events and that, or from different things like you go to Yang and all of this to let people know, what is really going on. I mean, I don't, I like questions and questions and questions, but I I like to get to the meat of it, and let's get it done.
I think that a part of that could be if anyone is available going to that event, because we all got an email inviting us to the event.
Yes.
I checked it. It is on February 11th. I had planned on attending. I think that is a good way to get our name out. It's also very unfortunate that we are in a college town, and I don't think any students know about it. Even just having information on campus about, this is what our city has. This is what we do, so that students can attend the meetings. When I first, learned about the committee and got all applied, I was talking to one of my professors about it, and even he had no idea. He was just like, "That's cool, but what are you going to be doing? Like, what is that?" And my government professor, so I think that having that information would be very beneficial. Outreach is important, but I do think just with groups that I've worked with in the past, being able to say like, this is what we do and this is what we're working towards right now, so people can see that goal and want to help with it. This is one of the things that we're working on right now. This is how we want to do it. This is how, it's going to help our community, because otherwise people hear what we do, but they don't really see, okay, well, what does that mean?
Again, I'm getting back to the wording. How are you, to me, the most important thing is sitting back and saying to ourselves, how do we're writing up things like for Facebook or for this or for that, what's going to attract people to this committee, and giving input, as Robert said. We need the input. So I mean, that's just the way I look at it. I mean, to me, it has to be a definite outreach, and I understand Stephanie, right? Okay, exactly what you're saying, but we've got to get to the point here now. What is important? What's important, as we stated, and you hear it all. I mean, it's embarrassing when you can't get even an input or something from people about, you know, what about this committee? What is it really about? And so I'm just sticking to what I believe in, which is outreach, which is the Facebook, which is all of these things. We need to start getting the proper wording down. Get down the proper wording. And then I think that then we can get moving and going. You know, I know the university is there and this is here and that's there. The Hmong community, I know about them for a long time. I mean, they're very, and of course, the Muslim community here, and there's many more. And there's a Black community sitting up in here who never says a word, you know. I mean, and then you got the Hispanic community here too. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I looked at the City of Appleton Facebook page, DEI
Yes.
Facebook page, and again, it's informational. It's events that are happening. It's acknowledging Martin Luther King Day. It's events
Yes.
acknowledging virtual events related to that. It just simply advertising that. There's information about easier access to COVID vaccinations, and we talked about way back when how a lot of our minorities are underrepresented when it comes to getting vaccinated. We don't know why that is, but if we have a DEI Facebook page and we can put information on there about how to get easier access to our vaccinations and information that public health has, you know, just easy stuff to put out there. I'm not trying to shove Facebook down our throats, but I'm just saying, if you look at some other sites such as City of Appleton's, it doesn't have to be rocket science to just set up a page and get information to people.
And you're right, because I looked at their websites, maybe about a year and a half ago. My God, the organizations that they have, the things that they do, we can bring things to the city just looking at some of the things that they have. There may be people who do want to organize this. You know, maybe, what did they have? The Juneteenth? Did we have anything here with Juneteenth? I mean, the Martin Luther, the Hmongs have their holidays, they're this, the Muslims, the this, the that. I mean, living in Chicago, I could tell you about the holidays. I think I went to many quinceañeras or whatever they call them here and everything else. Okay, but, you know, and the Filipinos are here.
Yes.
They are here.
John's had his hand up for about, a while now. I think
Okay.
just kind of jump in. So
I'm
I don't know
sorry.
if everybody can see all of the spots, but John, I know you put your hand up a while ago.
Well, I don't want to interrupt anything because I think you guys
No.
are really, first of all, I think, you know, Alonzo has really sparked you and got you moving in the right direction. And I think I don't want to, you know, crash that or anything like that. But I want to offer too, what I hear is it seems like you want to focus on outreach. And if, you know, we can assist in any way, you know, Michelle said we certainly could consult with our IT and media folks, but we can do better. We can have them, you know, be at the next meeting if you wish, and then you can focus on what I hear Alonzo saying is it's great to say let's do outreach, but you got to have a plan. You got to have components. You got to be prepared. So when people want to learn more, you know, you can provide it. So maybe it's you want to focus on an outreach plan, and however we can help you, you know, with resources inside the city, like Oshkosh Media. You know, we have 2 television stations and a radio station. We have, you know, information technology. We can work on a website. We can work on your Facebook site if that's what you want to do. But I think just mirroring what you're all saying and what I think Alonzo is trying to help with, you know, maybe it's somebody has to make a motion that we want to work on an outreach plan. And then you can focus on that, but get all the nuts and bolts worked on in terms of the components, so you can be successful with that. So it's just an observation and an offer of help. And I don't want to, you know, ruin your progress, but however we can help, we're happy to do that.
So I think where we get stuck is we're talking about potentially having an outreach plan. We're talking about specific ways that we could do outreach. What's next? What do we do? You know, so we're here today, and then what?
I'd say you just say, we make a motion that we want to focus on an outreach plan, and then we talk about the components, and Alonzo can help with that. Like, what sort of things do you want to focus on in outreach? You talked about social media. I know you've talked in the past about communicating with the media through written articles and education. You've talked about specific physical outreach. I think Agnes talked about meeting with different groups in the community, getting their input. I think there's a whole variety of things that you can work on. I know Angie has talked about, having people work on subcommittees in individual areas that they're interested in. But I think what I hear everybody saying, and what I hear specifically Alonzo saying to try to help focus the energy of the group, is if you can focus on a topic or several topics that are maybe connected, you can make progress, and you can, have some victories and then build on that. And I think, I don't want to speak for you, Alonzo, but that's what I hear you saying. I guess I'm just trying to mirror your desire to help organize the group with the passion it seems they have with outreach.
Yeah, like I'm loving the energy, and to help you understand how I'm wired, okay? Simply to February 11th is 3 weeks from now. So let's work backwards. In order for us to be there February 11th with a booth and information, by what date is our, I don't know who that is. Is that Agnes? Sorry.
But me,
Yeah, I think we hear you ripping up paper.
I'm
So,
ripping up paper and I'm kicking my cat off my table.
okay.
Go ahead.
So if February 11th we are at the table at our booth telling everybody about our committee, by what date did we have to have that flyer done? And by what date did we have our first draft for everybody to have input? You see what I'm saying? So that February 11th will come before your next committee meeting. I'm not saying don't be there. What I'm saying is on February 11th, as a regular person in the community, I am going to ask you, what is this and where can I get more information? And I don't know where you're going to send me. So I'm not an either or guy. I'm a both and guy. So yes, be there February 11th. And yes, I feel like we should take our energy and come up with a plan that is explicit to our brand and our outreach. And what does that mean? And how does that mean? And when does that mean? And where does that mean? And we could have that by the end of February. And then we take that in February, whatever that means, and then we agree, okay, we're going to take all this energy and focus on 2 or 3 areas. I'm not even going to say what 2 areas anymore. But I do know if Ashley was here, he would be very inside the fence focused. So we're going to satisfy that too. Can we make one of these the performance evaluations and the job descriptions? Whatever that means. We'll have 1 internal, 2 community. That's all I'm saying when I say order matters. Like we got to have this in place. And so I appreciate what Beth is saying. So we do this, and then what? But I say let's do the first one.
One more resource I can just offer quickly in response to what Alonzo has said. Earlier he talked about accessibility. The city of Oshkosh just completed a study with all of our parks, all of our buildings and facilities. We hired a consultant to go through our entire responsibilities under Title II. So we've kind of already worked on that project, and we'd be happy to share the results of that study with the group. And that, I don't know if that'll satisfy Ashley, as you indicated, Alonzo, but we're happy to share all that information with the group also.
It's not so much satisfy as much as I feel like I know my brother is super passionate about the employee part too. So
Sure.
I don't want to ignore that.
I don't want to ignore that either, but we have to remember that there is an internal committee that's doing that. And that's where our role gets muddied is we have the city has an internal committee looking at training for staff and doing the Title II accessibility. And so I struggle with what our role is because we agreed from the get-go we were going to look both internally and externally. But with that internal committee, I struggle with what our role is. So I don't know.
Do we all agree though that going back to that like racy thing, do we all agree that we are like recommending, like trying to pinpoint what we're doing? Are we like recommending things? Are we consulting? Because I think that's also part of the outreach is what does the committee do? Because I tell people about it and they don't really know, and I also like I tell them something, but I don't really know if that's exactly what we're doing. So I think that that's good. Also going to like what we want our focus to be. So 2 points. I think parks and the library are a good place to start because not only is it something that goes into accessibility with different disabilities, but I also think parks and the library, that's where a majority of our homeless population, ends up hanging out when they're not in shelter. That's, where a lot of different events happen. So I think that would be a good place to start, either one of those. But the library I know has a lot of different resources. That would be good.
Okay, so I'd like to make a recommendation that one of the priorities of this committee is to focus on outreach, including the exploration of a Facebook page, written material, and a possible survey.
I do agree with that. I almost think that outreach could be something that like we have a whole subcommittee that just focuses on how we could, best get into the community, reach out to different parts of the community. Because while I think it's important for all of us to show up and, be out in the community and get our names out, I think that that's something where a lot of us seem very passionate about it. Whereas like outreach, I like to attend events, but I'm not the person that's like on Facebook. I'm not the person that's like very, promoting things on social media. So I think we do have people that are passionate about that and could really be important with that.
Beth, are you putting your recommendation as a motion and are you looking for a second or is this just discussion?
I'm putting it forward as a motion.
Okay, then I think Beth is looking for a possible second and then discussion, of course. Just because it's seconded for those of you who are new doesn't mean it's done, but it opens it for discussion.
And the discussion could lead to amending the recommendation or motion. I mean,
we could, right.
I'll second it.
So a couple things that come to mind immediately for me, just based on our discussions is one, I think it would be helpful to include our mission statement in perhaps at every meeting, we can, after the land acknowledgement, we can read our mission statement so that brings clarity. So I think I would like to make that motion. I'll save that for something or when it's more official. But that's my first suggestion. And on any print material, as far as branding, I think our mission statement, just putting that out there and having that repeated and through multiple mediums would be a great first step. The second thing I would recommend or that I would like to see is for each of us to get business cards so that when we are out in the community, so since we are the face and we are the representatives of DEI for the city, even if it's informal, even if we don't have this is the DEI committee, this is our mission statement, these are our goals. Even if we don't have all of those talking points or memorized or whatnot, just talking about our passions and eliciting community concerns, I think would be a great way and a great way to get our information out, just kind of on a, face-to-face, one-to-one referral. So I'd like to inquire whether getting business cards for each of our committee members is something that we can explore.
I also think that that would be beneficial, having that resource with the committee so that people can, get that business card and then be able to follow it back to, if we have a Facebook page or whatever, have that on there, but also, know who's on the committee, know that there are people who, represent them on the committee, I think would be beneficial.
Okay, I think we went from Beth's motion to a bunch of recommendations within that motion for action items. I think those are all obviously a subset of outreach. I kind of wrote down some of what Beth said. Beth recommended outreach, Facebook, some written materials, and of course we can always go back and look at the film.
My motion was that I made a motion that we make outreach our focus area and include exploration of items such as Facebook, written materials, and help me out, it was my other, such as
Survey.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you add website to your motion?
Website.
And I'd like to amend my motion to add website and business cards. And as a side note, Angie, I think we all nodded our head in agreement that we should include the mission statement with those types of outreach things, but I don't know that I need it. It needs to be in the motion or not.
Right. I mean, we can certainly add the mission statement to our agenda after the land acknowledgement.
Do we also want to include the outreach as one of our standing items in each meeting for the time being, so that we can always go back to it and make that a conversation that we have each meeting?
Well,
I don't know if that means we have to amend.
That outreach is going to be part of your plan. And of course, you'll continue to review and update your plan. Is that kind of what we're thinking, that this is one of the action items in your plan? Is outreach? Maybe?
No, I think that's good. I think that having outreach as our main goal for right now would be good. And then having that as something that we come back to at each meeting and say, these are the events that I went to. This is, a conversation that I had with someone in the community, and just being able to come back to it and talk about what we've done over the last month in terms of outreach. With that, we could share possible events that are coming up in the future too.
Sure. Okay. So if I reread the motion just to make sure, Beth, and please correct me if I don't have everything. Recommend exploration, or recommend focusing on outreach with exploration on Facebook, written materials, survey, website, business cards. Okay. Do we have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Heather can call the roll if nobody has any further discussion.
Roberts.
Aye.
Payne.
Agnes, you're on mute.
Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Thank you. Wenzelberger,
Aye.
Yang,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and approved. Great. We've got a focus area. Alonzo, do you think it's necessary for us to kind of circle back to a discussion on like one of the internal components like you mentioned, like for example, hiring and that process?
Well, I don't think I've talked this much in 2 years, but I was going to make a second motion that we ask someone from the city library to present at our next meeting about what types of things they have in place currently that would be of interest to us.
Well, I don't know if we need a formal motion, but I would be happy to ask the library if someone would be able to join us next month. How does that sound?
That would be at least a starting point for some of the internal stuff to at least learn what's currently, again, in place.
Right. Absolutely. I will see if I can, I'll talk to the director and see if he would be able to join us and share some of the programming and stuff that they have. That's what you're looking at, right? Kind of what do they all do, community programming, things like that?
Yes, so if we could have someone from the city library and then someone, like you said, from IT regarding Facebook at our next meeting.
And then Angie, to answer your question, I'm gonna say I'm not sure because I think this has been a fantastic exercise in how we communicate and get our points across and understand. And at some point, this committee is gonna have to pick another thing, right? I have a feeling this one's going to be done in 30 days. We're going to come up with an outreach plan and then we have to execute against it, but that can't be the only thing we do. So we as a committee might, I heard someone from the libraries come in, right? I do want to remind you, some of this is already done for us and we could rhyme it. The county has a plan. I'm very close to Appleton's design. What do they do and how do they do it? And while they have an explicit person, my brother Timber in the role, I do understand what their strategy is and what could we do. I really feel like we could rhyme a lot. There's not a whole lot we have to invent. We just have to decide as a committee, what do we want to do next? And then what do we do? And then what do we do? There are things that you have no control over that will dominate discussion. So we are in the middle of a midterm election, and whenever there's an election, I will say the best of us comes out in the community. So what is our role with bringing people together and not letting some of this other stuff divide us? What do we, you know what I mean? We got to give ourselves some room to be able to respond to things too. So long-winded answer, Angie. I don't know yet. Let's see how we do with this first one.
Fair enough. Okay. Yes. Is there anyone who would like to add anything else about our next steps? We've already voted on in a focus area of outreach. Is there anything anyone else wants to contribute to the current agenda item, which is plan development? Or can we move on? I'll take that as we can move on. The next agenda item is supposed to be a council update, but I see that Council Member Aaron Wojciechowski is not present with us. Michelle, did he by chance leave a message or anything that he wanted conveyed?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have a specific update from the council.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a committee member roundtable. So this is an opportunity for us to share DEI related activities and events in the area. We've already mentioned on February 11th, there's a speaker who works at NASA and was a UWO, not a UWO alum, a Oshkosh North alum. And did everybody receive an email about that? I know Dr. Alicia Johnson sent an email to the committee, but I don't know if everyone was included on that email. Can you nod if you received the email? Okay. Since I'm not seeing that everybody received it potentially, I'll go ahead and forward that to the group. Are there any other events that anyone wants to share, any activities or celebrations?
Next week is the Dr. Grady for the county DEI committee on at 3:00.
And where is that located, Beth?
It's there's the Zoom presentations.
Okay.
I can send it to somebody Michelle, I'll send it to you to distribute.
That sounds good. Actually, Angie, if you want to send me the other one too, I'll send them both.
Sure.
That way you guys can get one email. And if there's more, then I'll send those out too.
Any others that people want to mention?
And this is something that Ashley asked me to add to the agenda this time, so that we can be sharing those events officially as part of our agenda. And as you'll see on the next future agenda, he did want to ask if we would want to do that every meeting. So
I think we should.
All right, it looks like we have consensus that I can add that to as a future meeting agenda item.
Do we need to vote on that, Michelle, or no?
I think it's fine, just that you guys are interested in having that as an agenda item.
I'm afraid to ask this question, but I have a question for Michelle.
Yes.
Okay. If I were looking regionally, does like Nina, Menasha, I live in Brown County. Is there a way for us to just share, capture and share activities in our region's not that big? Like just a hub. Like I can't participate in the conversation because I don't live in Oshkosh. But I could tell you what's happening in Green Bay. I don't know why I would assume you're not interested in that.
And that's why I think I'm sorry, I shouldn't jump in. I'll let Michelle answer, but I think that's why some of the people are using social media to say there's an event in Marathon County that everyone in the state might be interested in. So many things are happening virtually right now. Again, if you look at the City of Appleton's DEI website, there's a bunch of stuff that any of us could participate in. So I think that I'm hoping social media can be part of our conduit to get there.
I am on the board for Wisconsin's ACLU, and I am Wisconsin's national board rep. I absolutely have activities. But if you're asking explicit to Oshkosh, I got nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I think first of all, I would say Oshkosh area, because first of all, this is an Oshkosh area committee. Although the majority of the members, I think 7 out of the 9 have to be in city residents. We do have a couple spots for people who are outside the city. So I don't see any reason why we can't share any event where somebody could reasonably attend from this area.
Good answer. That was the most inclusive answer you could have given. Well played.
Alonso, to also answer your question, I know New North is currently, we're working on a platform, but this is like with all like 18 different counties. So this is more of a massive undertaking, but something to that degree of resource for community members, for businesses, for schools, and so that's just beginning, and I don't know how long it's going to take. We're kind of in the same stages as this committee, a lot of parallels here. But I also want to remind the group that I'm a big fan of this idea of like start where you are, and like we already have this channel through the Oshkosh Herald, and we've asked if anybody is interested in contributing stories or articles. I'm drafting one right now, but please, if anyone else is interested in putting a story out there, just let me know or let Carmen know, and we can connect you with the editor, Dan, at the Herald. And so I guess before we adjourn, I'm excited that we have this outreach focus area. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer to, start drafting some of these materials, or just even having like a Google Doc start writing out these plans?
Oh, Agnes,
I can.
her hand.
Wonderful. Thank you, Agnes.
And the information that I said I would send, I can send you the county's brochure just simply for people to give input or say this is way away, not even close to what we want, or we want something similar. I can at least send out that county one for people to look at, get ideas.
Thank you, Beth. And so once we have something kind of started, Michelle, you'll include that in our Google Drive for each of us to contribute. Just a reminder that when we do create documents or spreadsheets or whatever, please make it so that it is editable for all of us to contribute. I'll have to remind Mouche his metrics that he drafted. I noticed that that I can't edit any of it, so I'll have to ask him, but just a quick reminder to the committee as well. Is there anything else that anyone would like to add for our next agenda item, or any other questions, concerns before we adjourn?
Just a reminder that we did agree at our last meeting that everyone was going to suggest or get their feedback or suggestions in by January 31st, so that we can send those back out to review prior to our February meeting regarding the DEI performance metrics. Mouche did submit some thoughts that are already out on the Google Drive. So just a reminder that will be on our next agenda, is to further talk about the performance metrics.
Is that something that needs to be shared on Google Drive?
Generally, if you send them to me or Ashley, we'll get them out on the Google Drive. I did ask permission for you new members to get Google Drive. I'm not sure if you've got an invite.
I did not.
Okay, let me follow up for you and Agnes on the invite to the Google Drive.
Okay, cool.
Sorry about that commercial there, Angie.
No, that's okay. I think that's a good way to end our meeting. Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you, Alonso, for joining us, and really provoking some really good insights and discussion. Thank you everyone for your contributions. I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for new opportunities for this committee, and I know that people are perceiving there's a lot of good energy and a lot of good movement, and once we channel that and kind of focus that, that will make those waves, we'll make those connections, and I'm excited for all of that, for the unfolding of all of that. So thank you all, and I'll see you at the next meeting. Goodbye, good night. Thank you.
Motion.
Motion to
Oh.
adjourn.
I'll motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye. Bye.